Hello and welcome to this whole new project. And yes, I have not tidied up the table. I think this project fits without tidying up. And you might be wondering what's the hurricane doing on the table and the hangar at. So first step, what I'm going to do, if you remember, if you saw the previous video, I'm going to take out all the electronics from the hurricane, everything that I can reuse, maybe potentially for the electronics I'm going to use anyhow, but then all the other things like the cowling and the canopy, those I'll keep, of course, because I might make like a rubber model at some point. So that's going to be the first thing, kind of like the scrap part, the scrapping part. And I've also got here the hangar rat. This is my best flying model, like rubber model, and I know it might be funny for you. I've got a record of 10 seconds on this, and as I say, it's the best flying model that I have. I'm not going to rip this one apart, I'm just showing you what I have here. And the whole new project is a hangar rat that I've asked at the print shop to increase to 150%, so it doesn't even fit on the camera, which is great. So I'm going to try to make a hangar rat and put RC. So I'm going to take the RC component from the hurricane, build a huge hangar rat, well, largest hangar rat, and try to make it RC controlled. Inspired of course by Cliff and his mini yo-yos and his other experiments. At least then I can get these electronics to be used, and that's going to be then the project. So follow along on this one as I try to get the hangar rat to fly for longer than 10 seconds. So I'm afraid I couldn't hold myself back, so I already started before actually going more in details into the plan. I've cut out the fuselage. As you see, it's a complex piece. I did have a bit of a 6mm, which is about 1/4 inch sheet of wood, and this kind of came out of it very nicely. It was the longest piece I could get out of it, and actually it fit. And now what I have to figure out, I'm going to start with the fuselage because all the electronics are going to be there, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to do the wings and the tail surfaces. Well, actually the tail surfaces before, because then all the servos and the connectors will have to go to the tail surfaces. So fuselage is in place. The motor, I want to have it here up front, logically. It could be somewhere else actually, but I want to put it up front, and I've already started to build a little motor mount. So you see, this is where, in that little hole here, is where the motor will actually load in, and my plan is to actually glue it here on top, also to have more like clearance for the propeller when the moment comes. And for that I'm going to put in some gussets also. I've got to measure those out, so that'll be a bit of woodwork, which is always fun. Then the motor would go there. I'll put the ESC, which has the 2 servos, as far back as I can, but this will have to go probably underneath here. This is the orientation that it has, because this has some stabilization, some what you call gyroscopic stabilization in one way or another, and this is the orientation that comes in the original. So I'm going to have to settle that one somewhere underneath, so that I have then space to connect the push rods then somewhere else. I could maybe make a mount and put it up here, but I think that's going to be even more complicated, so I'll probably work on making some kind of a mount for the ESC. And then the push rods, as I say, they're going to probably go at a quirky angle up here no, I can't see it, up here to the rudder, and somewhere here to the elevator. So that's then the next step, and then I'm going to play with the battery to see where the center of gravity will be. So I'll do that last, because you see here the center of gravity is marked here, and with the other hangar rat that I did, actually I played with the position of the wing, moving it slightly forward and back, and with the landing gear. So these are the components. After I mount the motor, I might already start with the landing gear, so that I can then also mount the ESC and maybe get the fuselage, which is actually a stick, to move along. So before it even gets a wing or something, I might have a stick that moves along with a propeller. So, and an update. I find myself building away and not updating you. So what I've been up to, I've built the wheels. The core is made of balsa, and I've put 2 sheets of 1mm ply and an O-ring. The wheel is like half the size it should be according to the plan. I don't know if you can. Let me tilt you down ever so slightly. So here's the plan, and here's the size of the wheel as it should be. but this was the biggest O-ring I had, and I didn't want to go to the shop, so it's going to be tiny wheels there. What else have I done? So I've done the engine mount. I think I've shown you already. I've covered it up, tried to make it a little bit nicer, still ugly as it is, as only I can make it. And then I've probably over-engineered the ESC holder, put in some planks. I don't know if you can see all the structure, so I think this is 3mm, made the box, put it in there, somehow connected it, made some long gussets from scrap wood, and somehow fixed it there as far back as pretty much the engine cable will allow. And I've marked here the center of gravity should be at this height, so it doesn't leave you very much space to play with the battery, right? So that's a bit of the worry, so I might still need to do some weights. So, and that's the fuselage. This I was having to hold it until it has its own landing gear. See, got the pegs, and there's the fuselage, the stick fuselage there. And then the last thing I've been doing is the landing gear, which always seems to be an easy thing, but it never is, to make it nice and straight and as one wants it. And I'll be putting it here. I'll somehow bind it, maybe some wire or something, to the fuselage, that it's somehow stuck, or maybe some thread. I don't know how I'll do it, maybe thread. And I'll put on the wheels before, and then I'll have hopefully like a standing on the wheels, and I'll do also a tail skid for the tail. Once I have that, then I'm going to have hopefully a stick on wheels that will move. I've also worked on binding the ESC. It wasn't as easy because it's only going to be 3-channel, engine, elevator and rudder. So it took me a bit of a fight there, but I managed finally to connect it. So then at the end of this, then I'll hopefully show you the update. So now I'm going to put on the wheels and bind the landing gear, and work then also on the tail skid. So time for a brief update. I've already been playing around with my stick with a propeller, but I have no way of controlling the direction, of course. So what I've been doing, I've done the stabilizer. I've added some more pieces. The original actually doesn't have these middle pieces because it would be like not half the size, but much smaller. So I've added that for reinforcement. I've done the same thing for the rudder. There it is, the fin actually, more than the rudder. And I've also cut out the rudder. This will go there at the back, and this is actually the piece that then will actually turn to guide the airplane. What I still have to do is then also the elevator, which I'll probably do out of 1mm balsa that will go all across here. So probably make like some flat design or something. I don't think I need much, but just a little bit. So maybe the same width, so that somehow it matches, and that will be then the elevator. And then it's going to be about putting the cover on. What cover to use? On the other Hangar that I used plastic, like kitchen plastic, like to wrap up food. Now I'm not sure if I should use tissue. I could use tissue just on one side. I do have quite a lot of that, and try to shrink it. The risk with tissue is that if it shrinks, it could warp. So maybe that's not a smart idea. I have an idea maybe also to use aluminium foil, right? What's used also in the kitchen, and that might also give it an interesting look. But then at the same time, it might wrinkle and not unwrinkle so easily. So I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it, and maybe I'll do some experiments. And now it's really time to wrap up the chapter. So progress, engine mount, undergear, ESC, and tail assembly. The tail assembly is a little bit clumsy because I did have originally thought of 3 hinges for the elevator, but then I had to take it out because of the rudder assembly. So I think it does work, but maybe not as much throw as I would like to have. It was also quite messy to put the plastic cover on it. This is like cling film from the kitchen, and it had this, it tended to get unstuck, so I had to stick it on 2-3 times at least around the corners. So it's not as smooth as I would like to have it, but at least it's on. So I have to see for the wing how I do it. The rudder did come out a little bit better, I think, and I've done one test already, but I've done a test with one of the control rods in. I have to go to the shop to buy more wire because I don't have for the rudder. For the elevator it did work, but of course being such a long wire and so thin it was bending, so I've put in this piece of wood here. I don't know if you can see it, with a slot in it. It's gluing now, so it's supposed to move there. So let's see if I can move it without damaging anything. There, you see, so now, and maybe you see the elevator movement a bit down goes okay, up less. I also had to put in a reinforcement here so that it's rigid, but anyhow, I think the concept should work. And as I say, I have to do one for the rudder on the right side of the fuselage, and from that perspective, so far the structure is done. The next challenge is then the wing, which I'm already starting to do, so that will be then the next video. As always, thank you everybody for watching and for following along on this one, and I'll see you next time.